A legendary Korean crime patriarch returns after decades of absence to judge his son's empire. The entire room holds its breath. Then a waitress speaks, not in fear, not in English, but in forbidden dialect tied to buried massacres. One sentence shifts the balance of power. The sovereign was a cathedral of power pretending to be fine dining. Nestled on a cobblestone street where shadows cost more than light, the restaurant served a clientele that shaped nations over dessert. Senators whispered policy between courses. Billionaires laundered reputations alongside their wine selections. Movie stars felt privileged just to secure a reservation. But everyone, from the sommelier to the security detail station in the alley, knew who truly owned this kingdom. Sang-woo Park, the modern emperor, the dragon in a tailored suit. He sat at his usual table, positioned with surgical precision. Clear sightline to both entrances, reinforced wall at his back, escape routes memorized down to the second. His suit was charcoal perfection, his white shirt crisp as a death certificate. At 38, he had built an empire that made his father's old-world brutality look primitive. He controlled ports, politicians, and the invisible infrastructure that kept the city's underbelly functioning. He was ruthless, efficient, untouchable. Tonight, he was terrified. And then there was Francisca. She moved to the sovereign like smoke, present but unnoticed, essential but invisible. At 27, she had perfected the art of disappearing in plain sight. Her uniform was immaculate. A flowing white dress, crimson vest cinched at the waist, dark hair pulled back so severely it seemed painted on. She kept her eyes down, her voice soft, her existence a forgettable footnote in a world of screaming wealth. She was, by design, nobody. The money was excellent. The anonymity was better. And both were necessary for what she had come here to do. Tonight, the restaurant vibrated with a tension that made even the kitchen knives sound sharper. Robert, the floor manager, a man who sweated through 3 shirts on normal evenings, looked ready to collapse. Even Sang-woo's usual confidence had fractured into something harder, more brittle. His father was coming. Park Soo-Hyun was not a man. He was mythology with a heartbeat, the architect of the Park dynasty, the old-world emperor who had built his throne on blood feuds and coastal clan wars that predated Seoul's skyline. For 20 years, he had remained in Korea, a specter of brutal tradition. His arrival was not a reunion. It was a reckoning. "You," Robert hissed, his finger stabbing toward Francisca. Private room, table 7. Tonight, Francisca's pulse spiked, but her face remained neutral. "Me?" Maya spilled wine near the cousin last week. "She's scrubbing dishes in the basement. You're quiet. You're fast. You don't exist." Robert's eyes were wild. "You're a pair of hands tonight. Nothing more. Do you understand?" She nodded once. Her hands, him behind her back, were shaking. At 9 o'clock, the front doors locked. The public was banished. Sang-woo stood at the entrance in a posture of deference. He showed no living soul. 2 black sedans, armored, silent, glided to the curb. Park Soo-Hyun emerged. He was smaller than his son, perhaps 75, but he seemed to consume the air itself. He wore a dark, heavy-wool suit that hadn't been fashionable in decades. His face was carved from ancient stone, deep lines, suspicious eyes, and a mouth that had forgotten how to smile. He walked with a gnarled wooden cane that looked older than the restaurant. He didn't acknowledge the art, the chandeliers, the meticulously designed opulence. He simply sniffed the air as if testing its legitimacy. Sang-woo bowed, a gesture that cost him visible pain. "Father, welcome." Park Soo-Hyun's eyes passed over him like he was furniture. He walked inside. "He's in the room," Robert whispered to Francisca, shoving a silver tray into her hands. "Water. Still. No ice. Do not speak unless spoken to. Do not breathe loudly. Do not exist." Francisca balanced the tray, crystal glasses chiming softly. She pushed open a heavy oak door. The private room was suffocating. Cigar smoke hung in the air like judgment. Park Soo-Hyun sat at the head of the table, his cane resting against a chair like a scepter. Sang-woo sat to his right, looking like a child awaiting punishment. 2 lieutenants flanked them. Min-jun, The serpent advisor with a smile that never reaches eyes, and Taesung, a man built like a cement truck. Francisca moved silently. She poured water for the patriarch first. Her hands were steady, a minor miracle. Park Soo-Hyun gestured dismissively at the room. He wasn't speaking English. He wasn't even speaking standard Korean. He was speaking the old coastal dialect, the language of blood debts and clan feuds, the language of the South where the sea met violence. "So," he growled, his voice gravel in contempt, "all this, it is yours." Sang-woo replied in clean, academic Korean, his American accent barely detectable. "Yes, father. I built it for the family." The patriarch's lip curled. "You built this with American money. It is soft. Like you." Sang-woo's jaw tightened. "The times are different, father. The times do not change. Men do. They become weak." He looked at Min-jun and Taesung with open disgust. Then he shoved his water glass away and barked, not at his son, but at Francisca, still standing by the wall. "Wine. Red. One that tastes of earth, not chemicals." The room froze. Sang-woo began to translate, in English. "He wants." "I heard him," Francisca said. Her voice was soft, but it cut through the smoke like a blade. Sang-woo's head snapped toward her. Min-jun's smile vanished. Taesung's hand dropped toward his concealed weapon. Francisca stepped forward, away from the wall, away from invisibility. She looked directly into Park Soo-Hyun's black, merciless eyes. She bowed, not in servitude, but in the ancient gesture of formal respect between equals. And then, in the same pure, guttural coastal dialect that the patriarch had used, she replied, "Good evening, Chairman Park. I will bring you wine that remembers the taste of the earth." The effect was seismic. Taesung actually flinched. Min-jun's face drained of blood. Sang-woo stared at her, as if she had just spoken in tongues. But it was Park Soo-Hyun's reaction that stopped time. His dull, contemptuous eyes ignited. They became sharp, predatory, lethal. He leaned forward, studying her face with an intensity that felt like dissection. The silence was so absolute that Francisca could hear her own heartbeat. She had just spoken the language of massacres, the language of the clans, the language that was supposed to have died with her family. If you think this was an accident, keep watching. Park Soo-Hyun raised a single weathered finger. Sang-woo, who had been about to explode, shut his mouth instantly. The power dynamic had shifted, and everyone in the room felt it. The old patriarch's voice was softer now, but infinitely more dangerous. "You little one," he said in the dialect. "Where do you come from? Who taught you to speak like that?" It was a test. In their world, lineage was everything. Blood was the only currency that mattered. Francisca knew she was walking a tightrope over an abyss. She needed to give him truth wrapped in misdirection. "I come from here, Chairman," she replied, her voice steady. "But my grandmother was from the southern coast. She never spoke a word of English to me. She said the old words had more power. The southern coast." The mention hung in the air like a death sentence. It was a heartland of the old clans, the place where Park Soo-Hyun had built his empire on the bones of families who refused to kneel. Sang-woo understood enough of the dialect to know he'd just been bypassed. His face was stone, but rage flickered behind his eyes. Min-jun attempted to intervene, his voice thin and clumsy in the dialect. "Chairman, she is a servant. She's playing." "Silence!" Park Soo-Hyun roared. Min-jun flinched as if struck. The patriarch's eyes never left Francisca. He saw her simple uniform, her unadorned face, and the blazing, terrified intelligence in her eyes. A slow smile spread across his face. It was not kind. It was the smile of a hunter recognizing worthy prey. "You," he said, pointing, "you will bring the wine you choose. And you will pour it. You will serve my table tonight. Only you." He turned to Sang-woo with dismissive contempt. "Do you understand?" Sang-woo could only nod. "Yes, father." Park Soo-Hyun waved his hand. "Leave me, all of you. I will speak with the girl about wine." The order was a tactical nuclear strike. He had dismissed his own son, the feared Mafia boss who controlled the city, but kept the waitress. It was calculated humiliation, a demonstration of absolute power. Sang-woo stood, his movements controlled but violent. Min-jun and Tae-sung followed, their faces masked in confusion and fury. The door clicked shut. Francisca was alone with the Emperor Blood. Park Soo-Hyun gestured to the chair beside him, his son's chair. "Sit," he commanded. Her legs felt like water, but she obeyed. She sat at the table where empires were negotiated. The patriarch leaned back, his ancient eyes peeling her apart layer by layer. "The coast," he mused, "a place of strong secrets. And you, Francisca, you are full of them. Now tell me, who are you?" Francisca's hands were folded in her lap, trembling. She had prepared for this moment for 10 years. Every word, every breath, every calculated risk. She met his eyes and made a choice that would either save her or destroy her. "My name is Francisca Choi," she said quietly. "My grandmother was Choi Yunseo, daughter of the Choi clan of Haeju." The name landed like a grenade on the table. Park Soo-Hyun's expression didn't change, but something dark and ancient flickered in his eyes. The Choi clan of Haeju, the coastal family that had controlled the southern ports before Park Soo-Hyun rose to power. The family that had refused to negotiate. The family that had been erased in a single night 30 years ago. Men, women, elders, burned in their own compound. It was a massacre that built the Park Empire. "The Choi's are all dead," the patriarch said slowly. "I confirmed it myself." "Almost all," Francisca replied. "But my grandmother escaped that night. She was pregnant. She fled to America. She had me, and she raised me to remember and never forgive." The silence in the room was suffocating. Park Soo-Hyun studied her with the focus of a surgeon preparing for an incision. "So you have come for revenge?" he asked. "To kill me with these small hands?" Francisca smiled, a cold, sad expression that made her look far older than 27. "No," she said. "I have come for justice. Want to know the difference? Keep watching." Outside the private room, Sang-woo Park paced like a caged animal. Min-jun and Tae-sung stood against the wall, neither daring to speak first. The humiliation was radioactive. Their boss, the man who controlled governors and cartel leaders, had just been dismissed by his own father in favor of a waitress. "Find out everything," Sang-woo said finally, his voice lethal calm. "Her real name, her background, her family. I want to know who taught her that dialect and why she's here." "Yes, boss," Tae-sung rumbled. Min-jun's smile returned, oily and calculating. "Should we prepare a contingency in case she's a threat?" Sang-woo's eyes were ice. "She spoke to my father in the language of the old clans. She's not just a threat. She's a declaration of war. Find out which family sent her." Inside the room, the conversation had taken a darker turn. Park Soo-Hyun poured himself wine. Francisca's selection, a heavy red from a small Korean vineyard that still crushed grapes by foot. He sipped it slowly, savoring not just the taste but the power dynamics at play. "Justice," he repeated. "You were a bad child, but you understand nothing. My son is not weak. I taught him everything." "Then why does he fear you?" Francisca asked quietly. The question was a blade between the ribs. Park Soo-Hyun's expression hardened. "Respect and fear are the same thing." "No," Francisca said. "That is what people mistake. True power comes from respect. Power from fear always collapses." For the first time, Park Soo-Hyun laughed. A dry, wheezing sound like wine through dead trees. "Your grandmother taught you that?" "No," Francisca said. "You did." The patriarch's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" Francisca leaned forward slightly, her voice soft but cutting. "When you killed my family, you taught people fear. Now your own son fears you. The structure you built is devouring you." The words hung in the air like an indictment. Park Soo-Hyun didn't respond immediately. He swirled the wine in his glass, watching the dark liquid catch the light. "You have courage," he said finally. "Foolish, but courage." "What I want is not revenge," Francisca said. "What I want is truth, in her name, for the voices of my family, and for the children you massacred. People deserve to remember." Park Soo-Hyun set down his glass with deliberate precision. Truth is dangerous. That's why you buried it, Francisca replied. The door to the private room burst open. Sang-woo stood in the entrance, his face a mask of barely controlled fury. Behind him, Tae-sung held a folder. "Father," Sang-woo said in English, his voice tight. "We need to talk. Now." Park Soo-Hyun looked at his son with mild annoyance. "I am speaking with a lady." "She's not a lady," Sang-woo snapped. "Her name is Francisca Choi. Her grandmother was Choi Yun-seo, the Haeju choice, the family you." He stopped. The realization hit him like a freight train. Park Soo-hyun smiled coldly. "Now you understand?" Sang-woo stared at Francisca with a mixture of shock and something else. Horror at the implications. "You knew," he said to his father in Korean. "You knew who she was the moment she spoke." "Of course," the patriarch replied calmly. "And you kept her here? Alone?" Sang-woo's voice was rising. "She could be armed. She could be—" "She is not a weapon," Park Soo-hyun interrupted. "She is a mirror." Min-jun appeared in the doorway, his face pale. "Boss, we have a problem. 3 of our port captains just received anonymous packages. Historical documents. Ledgers. Photos from—" He stopped, glancing at Francisca. "From 30 years ago," Sang-woo finished, his voice dead. "The massacre, the evidence that had been buried was surfacing." Francisca stood slowly, her movements calm. She looked at Sang-woo directly. "I didn't come here to kill anyone," she said in English. "I came here to make sure people remember. Your empire is built on mass graves and erased families. I'm just here to restore their names." "You're here to destroy us," Sang-woo said. "No," Francisca replied. "I'm here to show that your power was never yours to begin with. It was stolen, and stolen things don't last." Park Soo-hyun laughed again, that dry, humorless sound. "She is smarter than you." The insult hit Sang-woo like a physical blow. Tae-sung moved forward, his hand inside his jacket. "Boss, should we—" "Stop," Park Soo-hyun commanded. The old patriarch stood slowly, leaning on his cane. He looked at Francisca with something that might have been respect. "You want to destroy us, but you will not kill me," he said. "No," Francisca agreed. "You will do it yourself." The empire is fracturing, but the bloodiest battle is still to come. Keep watching. The next 72 hours transformed the sovereign from a restaurant into a war room. Sang-woo locked down the building. No staff were allowed to leave. Francisca was moved to a storage room on the 3rd floor, not in prison exactly, but definitely not free. A guard was posted outside her door. Inside his office, Sang-woo stared at the folder Tae-sung had compiled. Photographs from 1995. Burned buildings. Bodies. A coastal compound reduced to ash and bone. Police reports filed and buried. Witness statements that had never seen a courtroom. And at the center of it all, his father's signature on transfer documents, seizing the Choi family's port operations a day after they were eliminated. Min-jun sat across from him, his smile long gone. "The documents she leaked are spreading," Min-jun said quietly. "We contain some of it, but journalists are asking questions. Old prosecutors are talking. The families of survivors." "There were no survivors," Sang-woo interrupted. "Apparently there was one," Min-jun corrected. "Choi Yun-seo. She was 19, pregnant. She escaped through a drainage tunnel while the compound burned. She made it to a fishing boat, then to San Francisco. She had a daughter there. That daughter had Francisca." Sang-woo closed the folder, his hands shaking with suppressed rage. "My father built this empire on a massacre," he said, more to himself than to Min-jun, "and I inherited it without asking questions." "It was war," Min-jun said carefully. "The choice wouldn't negotiate. Your father did what was necessary to murder children?" Sang-woo snapped. "There were 8 children in that compound. I read the coroner's report." Min-jun went silent. Sang-woo stood, walking to the window that overlooked the city. His empire, built on bones he'd never seen. "What do you want to do?" Min-jun asked. "I want to talk to her," Sang-woo said. Park Soo-hyun was in the wine cellar. A bizarre choice, but the old patriarch had always been unpredictable. He ran his hands over bottles worth more than cars, his expression contemplative. When Sang-woo found him, the old man didn't look up. "You are angry," Park Soo-Hyun observed. "You killed innocent people," Sang-woo said in English, refusing to use the dialect. "Women, children, you burned them alive." "It was war," his father replied calmly. "It was murder, and you never told me. You let me build everything on top of their graves without knowing." Park Soo-Hyun finally looked at his son. "You didn't need to know. You needed to inherit." "I inherited a lie," Sang-woo said, his voice breaking slightly. "Everything I built, every decision I made, it's all poisoned." "Power is always poison," the patriarch said. "It's the only way it survives." "No," Sang-woo said. "You're wrong." For the first time in his life, he saw his father look genuinely surprised. Francisca sat on a wooden crate in the storage room, surrounded by restaurant supplies and old furniture. She wasn't afraid. She had known this moment would come. When the door opened, she expected Tae-sung or one of the other enforcers. Instead, Sang-woo walked in alone. He stood there for a long moment, studying her. She looked back at him with that same calm, devastating composure. "You want to destroy everything I built," he said finally. "No," Francisca replied. "I want to expose what it was built on. There's a difference." "Not to me. That's the problem." Sang-woo pulled up a chair and sat across from her, an echo of his father's gesture from days earlier. "The documents you leaked," he said. "The evidence. You have more." "I have everything," Francisca said. "Names, dates, bank transfers, witness testimonies recorded before they died. My grandmother documented everything before she passed. She spent 30 years collecting proof." "Why now? Why not go to the authorities?" Francisca smiled sadly. "Your family owns the authorities. I needed to do this publicly. Make it too big to bury. Make sure people couldn't ignore it." Sang-woo was silent for a long time. "My father," he said finally, "he's downstairs right now, calm as anything. He doesn't see what he did as wrong. He sees it as necessary." "I know," Francisca said. "That's what makes him dangerous. He believes his own mythology. And me?" Sang-woo asked. "What am I?" Francisca studied him carefully. "You're someone who has a choice. Your father didn't give you one. But I am." "What choice?" "You can protect the empire he built on mass graves," Francisca said. "Or you can be the one who finally tells the truth. You can't do both." The explosion happened at 11:47 that night. Not literal, but close enough. Min-jun had made a decision without consulting Sang-woo. He'd contacted an old associate, a fixer who specialized in permanent solutions to persistent problems. The plan was simple: make Francisca disappear. Quietly, completely. But Tae-sung, who'd been listening to Sang-woo's conversations, who'd seen the horror in his boss's eyes when he read those files, made a different decision. He intercepted the fixer in the alley behind the restaurant. The confrontation was brief and brutal. When Sang-woo heard the gunshots, he ran, Francisca behind him. They found Tae-sung standing over two bodies, the fixer and Min-jun, who had apparently tried to stop Tae-sung from stopping the assassination. "He was going to kill her, boss," Tae-sung said, his voice steady despite the blood on his hands. "I couldn't let him do that." Sang-woo stared at the bodies, at his oldest advisor dead in an alley, at the infrastructure of his empire collapsing in real time. Park Soo-Hyun appeared in the alley doorway, leaning on his cane. He looked at the bodies with mild interest, then at his son. "You have made a choice," the old patriarch said. "Yes," Sang-woo replied in English. "I have." He turned to Francisca. "The evidence. All of it. I want you to release it. Everything. I'll confirm it's authentic. I'll testify if necessary." "Sang-woo," Tae-sung started. "It's done," Sang-woo interrupted. "This empire was built on murder. I won't defend it anymore." Park Soo-hyun laughed, that dry, humorless sound. "You are a fool. You will lose everything." "Maybe," Sang-woo said, "but I'll be able to live with myself." The patriarch studied his son for a long moment. Then he did something no one expected. He bowed. Not deeply, but unmistakably. A gesture of acknowledgement. "You are stronger than me," Park Soo-Hyun said quietly. Then he turned and walked back into the restaurant, his cane tapping against the pavement. 3 months later, the Sovereign was closed. Federal investigations were ongoing. Sang-woo had surrendered himself for questioning, his lawyers working on a cooperation agreement. Some of the empire could be salvaged. Much of it couldn't. Park Soo-Hyun had returned to Korea. Extradition proceedings were in progress, but at his age, with his connections, no one knew if he'd ever face justice. Francisca stood outside the shuttered restaurant, looking up at the building that had been the center of her life's mission for so long. Sang-woo emerged from a car, returning from another day of depositions. He saw her and walked over. "You got what you wanted," he said. It wasn't an accusation, just an observation. "I got the truth out," Francisca replied. "That's not the same thing. Your family's names are in every paper. They're remembered now." "Yes. Was it worth it?" Francisca considered the question. "Ask me in 10 years. Sang-woo nodded. "If I'm not in prison, maybe I will." He started to walk away, then stopped. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry. For what my father did. For what I benefited from without asking questions." "I know," Francisca said. "That's why you're still standing here, and not buried next to Min June." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Then he was gone. Francisca stood alone on the cobblestone street as evening fell. The restaurant had been her target, her obsession, her battlefield. It was just a building now. She thought her grandmother, who had spent 30 years documenting the truth, who had taught her the old dialect in a small apartment in San Francisco, who had never stopped believing that justice was possible even when revenge seemed easier. She thought of the 8 children who died in the fire, the families erased, the voices silenced. They had names now. They had a story. They were remembered. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't even justice, not completely, but it was truth. And in the end, that was the only empire that lasted. If one word could destroy an empire, imagine what a truth can do. If you made it to the end, thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, and comment. Should our next story be more Mafia revenge or more redemption?